Oh, good morning. You can watch the show on YouTube Live. Search Out of Bounds Sports. This is 105.9 The Zone, WRKS, ESPN, the Out of Bounds Show. Brought to you by Boar's Head, meats, cheeses, and hummus. You can find it all with the Boar's Head products. Delicious quality, fifth generation owned company since 1905. That's right. Boar's Head, meats, cheeses, hummus for game day, among other things. Jeff Jones with Jonesy Q, the award-winning pitmaster, put together a Boar's Head charcuterie board that was ridiculous. And then Nathan dropped some Boar's Head sliders on us a couple of weeks ago, which I can do sliders, but they were exceptional. So I may have to go back over that. But Boar's Head sliders, charcuterie board for game day, all at Boar's Head. You can find it wherever you're grocery shopping. We're live in the Bank Plus studio. We're streaming live on the Out of Bounds radio app. And we welcome in Dave Bartoo at CFB Matrix on Twitter. He joins us on the Coors Light guest line. What's happening, Hotshot?
Dude, I can hear it in your voice. You're like, I hope Bartoo's sober and doesn't drop an F-bomb on my show this morning.
That's actually, I was thinking that. That's true.
Oh, no, it's good. Actually, I was just ordering some new material. I got a big elk hunt coming up, as you know, at the end of the month, and it's already snowing up there. It's about 6,000 foot elevation, and rather than going out and buying a new expensive sleeping bag, I ordered some new merino wool out of New Zealand, and so I'm going to hand sew my own sleeping bag liner for the trip coming up.
What?
Do you know how ridiculous you sound right now?
You're going to hand sew your own sleeping bag with what
Yeah,
wool?
well, see, where I grew up, my mom taught everybody in the house, me, my brother, sister, we all had to sew. So by the time I was in 6th grade, I could sew my own shirt. I could sew my own pants. I could make my own socks. So
Sounds like a Dolly Parton
dude,
song.
I'm a hillbilly, I can do master of none, jack of all trades.
All right, let me ask you this. When was the last time you chopped wood?
This last weekend.
Okay.
Yeah.
And for our listeners, you're being dead serious, right?
Huh?
For our listeners, you're being dead serious.
Oh, yeah. No, I'm not messing around there.
There's no way anyone thinks Dave Bartoo's a real person.
He's got a little bit of like Davy Crockett, Paul Bunyan, a combo maybe, Blake?
Yeah.
Okay.
On speed.
That's true. Yeah, there's no question. Like when Bartoo calls me, it's just this stream of conscious. It's just
that's like texting him.
All right, I'll see you later, man.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
Fire hydrant.
Yeah, I mean, it's like we may be on the phone for about 18 to 22 minutes, and it's just
yeah.
And then
it's like,
hey, I got to go.
It's like Lane Kiffin's offense.
He's like, I just saw a coyote. See ya. Something like that. Lane Kiffin's offense. Speaking of Bartoo, we were debating whether, Florida's got a dynamic, explosive offense. And
no.
Ole Miss has one. No?
When has Dan Mullen ever had a dynamic, explosive offense?
So are you not buying it?
Efficient offense, yes. High
Okay.
scoring, maybe, once in a while.
Okay.
But I would never define what he's done as explosive. Trying to always hit that huge play. Whereas you look at what Lane's doing from a passing game standpoint, which is to me a derivative off of Briles stuff at Baylor. And remember, Briles' kid was with Lane at FAU, blah, 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 blah. I think these are, same thing Chip Kelly here at Oregon. The goal was always trying to hit that explosive play. It wasn't nickel and diming or anything like that. The intent was always to be explosive. Whereas Dan, they can score the points, but I don't think you look at the play calling from the standpoint of they're trying to set something up explosive. I think with Florida, you're maybe looking at using just better players to create explosive plays, whereas somewhere with the Ole Miss, albeit good players, it's certainly not at an elite level of player. So you were trying to me, create that explosive play through the play calling.
Okay. Well, the Baylor offense is here. It has arrived in the SEC with Kendall Briles at Arkansas and Kiffin and Levy. And as you know, Bartoo, Levy and Kendall are brother-in-laws. So this Big 12 Baylor version, or variation of whatever, is now hit the SEC. And I know you don't watch a lot of games, but just to piggyback off of what you told us a year ago with Kendall Briles, that he was an exceptional offensive play caller, and then back in February, March, or April, you listed him as the number one play caller in the SEC. He is, considering the personnel they have, Bartoo, he is absolutely working people. And he worked Auburn, who, as you know, has more talent. He worked them all day long last weekend. So my point is, this Baylor Big 12 version has hit the SEC with Ole Miss and Arkansas, and it's rolling and working.
Oh, yeah. Well, we talked about it on your show before the season. What did we say? We said the SEC has the best collection of offensive coordinators in the country, and we said take the over on all these football games, especially early on. Dude, it's exactly what's happened. There shouldn't be a surprise here. I mean, your worst offensive coordinator in the SEC is what right now? Gus Malzahn? Jimbo Fisher? The collection of offensive minds and talents. I mean, this shouldn't really surprise anybody. I think the biggest surprises will be is Charlie Strong not calling defensive plays next week. That might be the biggest surprise. But we had talked about this, and this is where it's at. And I was reading something a little bit this morning, like with Alabama, and all this talent, and the what about the defense? And dude, Alabama right now is basically what we refer to as Oklahoma the previous 2 years, right?
Right.
Score a gazillion points and maybe not have a great defense. And that was just one football game, but. These things kind of go hand in hand. Ultimately, this is why I always go back to scoring efficiency and a defensive coordinator's ability to handle play volume. And this is why some of these guys, your Bo Pelini's, your Kevin Steele. When's Ole Miss play Auburn?
Next weekend.
Oh my God. Okay. You want to see 11 guys standing around with their hands on their heads, gasping for air at the end of the third quarter?
Auburn?
I will bet Kevin Steele's defense, because he doesn't rotate worth a damn. And once his defense has hit about 65 plays, it is just a toilet bowl. So I could see the Auburn-Mississippi script. If there's not a lot of turnovers, maybe a close game in the third quarter, and then the fourth quarter, it is just like up and down for Ole Miss, because Auburn's going to be gassed. So and that's with all of this high-powered offense coming in all at once, it is a huge change for these defensive coordinators. It's not that they're not good defensive coordinators. It's just that the offense is picking up simultaneously throughout the conference, basically in a season. So these defensive coordinators, as good as their minds might be, as great as they may be watching film, it takes time to digest all this and then implement it and recoach new ideas with the defense.
Earlier today in the show, Dave, when you were dreaming about elk hunting, in the first or second segment, I made this statement that Kiffin is going to run Malzahn and Auburn out of the stadium, and that'll be the final nail in his coffin. There's already coach fatigue there, Bartoo, and they're going to lose several games this year, but they don't put up with losing to Ole Miss or MSU, especially in an embarrassing manner. And I think Kiffin and them could actually embarrass them next weekend in Bald-Hemingway.
Well, they certainly have. They've certainly proven to have the offense and the scheme right now to be able to do that. Hard to count Gus out. I mean, he's got to be the most resilient head football coach in Power 5 right now.
Sure.
I mean, how many huckleberries have been driven into his coffin on your show? A dozen?
Yes.
But I think the biggest thing there is, you and I have talked about this off the air too, is in this instant oatmeal microwave drive-through society, it's like win or new. We got to do something new. Even if you're not winning, like you said, the coach fatigue. Is there a point where people are tired of it, And one of the big things actually might be that hiring of Chad Morris. Because how many Auburn fans went, dude, bro, couldn't get it going at SMU, sucked at Arkansas, and you brought him in. And now the offense sucks. So how many fans are going, dude, I told you so. I was pissed off about this before the season started. So you may have a culmination of things there, is fans that are just annoyed with the trajectory with that hire.
Right.
And now it's coming to fruition, and now they're even more mad. So I think you're kind of going down the right path from the standpoint of everything's culminating in a negative direction, where an AD in this situation may be just forced to make a change because of the apathy amongst boosters and fans.
Dave Bartoo at CFB Matrix on Twitter. He joins us on the Coors Light guest line. Let's go to Mike Leach. There's a lot of frustration in the MSU fan base with MSU not moving the football at all. They didn't even score an offensive point last weekend. Weekend before, they only scored 14. But when I talked to you yesterday, you've been tracking Mike Leach forever. A lot of people say it takes a year for his deal, but you're not wavering whatsoever on whether or not he can be successful at Mississippi State, right?
No, I'm not wavering on that. Look at his first year at Washington State. It was average. I expected zero coach effect. So yeah, was the win over LSU plus one game in my numbers? Yeah, that was awesome. But I expected him to give it back, which he unfortunately did the next week. I had Kentucky winning the game last week, basically even talent on the field at Kentucky. And you can say, well, we didn't score a point. Well, geez, man, you want to talk about some more bad luck? Kentucky had what, 150 yards?
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, the plus thing, in last weekend, I am really sorry for y'all. I'm a Mississippi State fan. I know y'all love football down there. That 48 hours of last weekend, I'm not a thoughts and prayers guy, but I maybe make an exception for y'all on this last weekend. But the plus side, look at the defense. Look at Zach Arnett. I was critical of that hire, skeptical of that hire. That has been the best under the radar hire in the SEC. We talked about it before the season. I thought the biggest question mark coming in for the West from a coaching standpoint is what the defensive coordinator at Mississippi State was going to do. We had grades on everybody else, right? And so we kind of knew, or at least assumed, what would happen there, and a lot of it's playing out exactly as we expected, right? I think that's the biggest positive unexpected thing to come out of it. So, right now, coach effect at Mississippi State is zero. And before the season started, I came on the show and said, I expect it to be zero. It doesn't happen overnight. And so, no, I'm still positive on the outlook going forward, even though the negative in the short term right now is not very good.
Bartoo on the Out of Bounds Show, powered by the Golden Moon Casino Sportsbook, which is super cool. Bet $50 there. Play award-winning Dancing Rabbit Golf Club for $30. Blakey Blakester, you got a question for Bartoo?
Dave, you just mentioned kind of how there's a little bit of deception in the bad defensive numbers, in that it's all happening at once, waterfall style. All these offensive coordinators are changing, and the nature of SEC offenses is different. So we asked this question of both, I think, Tom Lugaville for sure and Brad Edwards. I said, which would you rather be elite at right now? Which is the best side to be elite at, offense or defense in college football? I think it's offense, because if you can score and you're just moderately okay on defense, a la LSU last year, you're going to end up winning way more games than you lose because elite offenses and the design of the game lends itself to be more successful. Your thoughts?
Yes. From an offensive side, you're putting points on the board. From a defensive side, you're keeping points off the board. If you are number one at one or the other, I think it's equally great. I really do. Now, if you're number one in defensive scoring efficiency, but your defensive scoring efficiency isn't as powerful as the number one offensive scoring efficiency, now you have a deficit, right? I mean, if you have Georgia, let's say Georgia's number one in defensive scoring efficiency, and Alabama's number one on offensive scoring efficiency, and Alabama's just the offense overall is just better than the best defense. Certainly, you just want to have the best available. But to me, when I look at it, everybody gets so caught up in the offense. To me, the defense is equally as valuable. I kind of look at it from a standpoint of baseball. Okay, to me, especially championship side of it, pitching always wins. If you can't hit the ball, you're not winning baseball games. So we get all caught up in offense in football the same way, but I feel defense can be just as powerful. Now, that LSU defense you're talking about, dude, it was still 17th in total team scoring efficiency last year. You look at the overall numbers, and you go, oh, it was terrible. Well, that's because freaking Joe Brady was throwing a touchdown pass every 3 plays. The defense was on the field constantly last year for LSU, but it was still a very, very good defense. It was better than this year's defense.
That's a fact.
Even though Ed tried to tell us it wasn't going to be.
So when you look at Mississippi State and Ole Miss, who are under talented most of the time when they play, which side is more important to be better at?
I don't think there is a side to be more important to be better at. I think it's important to whatever scheme you're running. It doesn't matter what pace you're running it at, fast or slow on offense. I don't think it matters in that regard. Now, if you are looking to put a lot of pressure on the opposing team, if it comes right down to it, if you said, Dave, you have to have a choice, an unstoppable offense or an unstoppable defense, I'm still probably going to lean on the offense because of the psychological impact it creates on the opposing defense and the opposing play calling. And because I saw this at Oregon, you could literally see teams when they came out and Oregon got up 2 touchdowns in the first quarter, or the beginning of the second quarter, and all of a sudden the other team starts pressing. Even if they're a good team, they start panicking, going, I got to do something different to keep up. They're going to keep scoring. I got to keep scoring. And then it takes them out of their rhythm. It takes them out of that scheme, and then teams start throwing and doing things outside of the norms, and that created a ton of turnovers for Oregon. So from a psychological standpoint, I would lean on having that unstoppable offense that freaks people out coming out of the tunnel versus the defense. But really, in the grand scheme of things, like winning a national title, you want to be number one in one or the other, because greatness can win you a football game on either side of the football.
Bartoo on the Out of Bounds show. All right, let's take that to Saturday night. It's the game of the week. Georgia at Alabama on CBS. Georgia's got I think it's the only elite defense in the SEC. Bama is absolutely elite on offense. Which way would you go considering that?
Oh, I'd take sans anything that has happened this year. Okay, coming into the season, you're going to take, in my opinion, you look at this football game, you're going to take the better talent, you're going to take the home field, and you're certainly going to take the better coaching staff. Okay, I think Georgia's deficiency is the offensive coordinator. I think it's the offensive side of the football. Yeah, they may be able to bring it on the defensive side. Let's just say the defense of Georgia is up to the task of Alabama's offense. So we're looking at the weaker links of this. We're looking at the offense versus the defense, and I'm taking Alabama's defensive coaching staff over Georgia's offensive coaching staff. So putting aside everything that's already happened this year, that's the way I would view this game coming into the season in favor of the better coaching. because talent, you can pick it apart. It's pretty even from a recruiting standpoint. Both sides of the football, pretty even talent. I think it comes down to the strength of the weakest link. And this is Alabama defense versus Georgia offense, so I'm going to take the Bama defense.
So even though you don't have even though you're not a believer in Pete Golding, the DC at Bama, you're thinking Saban, Charlie Strong, some of the other people around the program, you're taking that to trump the Georgia, Todd Monken, and that offensive staff.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. You also have a new staff. Not only is it's Monken's career, but it's also new. We've still had less practices. We're still not in the flow of things. I think programs with new coordinators, in some instances, are running a little bit more behind with things. And Golding, again, the question mark. That program is really deep on the defensive side of it. Charlie Strong is a play caller, not as a head coach, but as a play caller is very good as well. So, but like I said, telling the story of what I think is going to happen in the game, I'm looking at that weakest link, and I'm edging the Tide over the Bulldogs because of that.
So if you were Saban, Mullen, or Orgeron, you would be hiring Charlie Strong or Derek Mason at the end of the year.
Oh, yeah. Oh, dude, if Derek Mason comes available, I've said this before, you've got to me, he's a national championship level type of defensive coordinator. He was unbelievable at Stanford. He has put together defensive schemes at Vanderbilt with no talent.
Right.
No business being in football games.
Right.
So those guys need to be ready to pull the trigger. And when I say not ready to pull the trigger on hiring Derek Mason, they got to be ready to pull the trigger on firing the guy they have right now to get Derek Mason. Mm-hmm. Because if you hesitate on it, somebody else is going to get him. He ain't going to be on the market more than 2 seconds. In fact, I'll be really surprised if he doesn't have a job
before he gets fired at Vanderbilt.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It's if he's leaving there, it's already lined up. It should already be ready to go. If you want Derek Mason, you are already on the phone to his agent a long time ago, saying, "Hey, when he's ready to go, you need to call me."
And I've got 1 minute. Who's more elite, Derek Mason or Charlie Strong at DC? Play caller.
I'd take Derek Mason.
Okay.
I'd take Derek Mason. Just because the consistency he's had over the last few years, he's still the play caller at Vanderbilt, so he's involved in current offense.
That's a good point, Dave. Okay.
We've seen. I think we've seen really firsthand career. His career is a B. He was a really good defensive coordinator. He had some years that were a great defensive coordinator, but Bo Pelini hasn't called defense in 10 years, and his adaptability is a lot less right now. It may take a while for him to catch on and figure it out if he does, but give me the guy who's been involved in current offenses over the guy who's trying to catch up.
Bam. We'll leave it there. Dave Bartoo at CFB Matrix on Twitter. You can also check out his Patreon account. And when are you going elk hunting?
A couple weeks. Weeks. Yeah.
Well, we'll talk to you before then.
9 miles in the wilderness. Going to be awesome.
Be good, dude. See ya.
Later.
Dave Bartoo on the Coors Light guest line. Oh, man, the Out of Bounds Show brought to you by the Charbroiled Oysters at Drago's Seafood Restaurant and Oyster Bar. Also presented by Briarwood Wine and Spirits. Great selection of vino, Tito's Vodka, Four Roses Bourbon. And the show is always powered by USA Pawn for all your tools, electronics, and firearms. USA Pawn's Mega Store, I-55 North, McDowell Road. See you tomorrow.